All right, welcome. Today we are diving into an absolutely wild story about a surprise birth in a campground bathroom. Yeah, you heard that right. We're going to unpack how full 9-month pregnancy went completely unnoticed and what this whole dramatic experience can teach us about, actually listening to our own bodies. Let's get into it. So just listen to that quote. That is the terrified reaction of a man who, in just a matter of minutes, was about to go from boyfriend to father. I mean, can you even imagine? That one sentence just perfectly captures the absolute chaos and confusion of a day that started as a normal camping trip and ended up as a literal fight for a newborn's life. So how on earth did we get here? Well, let's meet the couple at the heart of this story. 25-year-old Emily and 31-year-old Levi. They had plans, marriage, kids, but way down the line. They had absolutely no idea their future was about to show up 9 months early. And the story of how this pregnancy stayed a secret is basically a masterclass in missed signals and some really common misunderstandings. Okay, so the first piece of this puzzle is that the couple's only form of birth control was the rhythm method. And as our medical expert points out, for that to even have a chance of working, you need a cycle that is perfectly predictably regular. For someone like Emily, who had irregular periods, it's just not reliable at all. So right from the get-go, their main defense against pregnancy was pretty flawed. And this, right here, brings us to the first huge red flag. Because Emily's periods were already kind of all over the place, when she missed one back in November, it didn't set off any alarm bells. Not a single one. It just didn't even register as a possibility. And this is that critical moment where what seemed totally normal for her body was actually masking a massive, life-changing event. Now, to make things even more confusing, Emily actually thought she was still getting her period on and off for the next 9 months. But here's the medical reality of it. You can't have a real menstrual period when you're pregnant. The hormones in your body during pregnancy pretty much make it impossible. What you might have is other kinds of bleeding, maybe from something called a subchorionic hemorrhage, but it's not a period. And you can see how this misunderstanding was a huge reason the pregnancy stayed hidden for so long. So on top of the missed periods, other classic pregnancy symptoms started to show up. Emily was feeling super tired, and her ankles and feet were swelling up. But here's the thing. For every symptom, there was a perfectly logical explanation. The tiredness, well, that's just life, right? And the swelling? She had just started a new job in a hospital kitchen, so of course her feet hurt. She was standing all day. It just goes to show you how easy it is to explain things away when you're not looking for a problem. So let's jump ahead to the weekend where everything changed. On a total whim, Emily and Levi decided to go camping at a place called Mothy Lake. It was a last-minute decision, totally spontaneous, a decision that would put them miles and miles away from the nearest hospital, right when this hidden pregnancy was about to make itself known in the most dramatic way you can imagine. This situation escalated, and fast. It started early Saturday morning with what Emily just figured were cramps, but by 11 a.m., the pain was getting way, way worse. A little later in the afternoon, she felt this intense pressure and just thought she was really constipated. It was only when she got to the campground bathroom that she felt something was terribly, terribly wrong, and she yelled for Levi. Okay, this is the moment of pure, unfiltered shock and terror. Levi runs to the bathroom, he looks, and all he can describe it as is tissue and blood. His mind just immediately jumps to the absolute worst case scenario. He thinks he's looking at his girlfriend's intestines, like a catastrophic internal injury. He has no clue, zero, that he's actually witnessing the final moments of childbirth. So while a panicked Levi is sprinting to find his phone to call 911, Emily is all alone in that bathroom. And it's in that exact moment that her water breaks. And just like that, the reality of what's happening crashes down on her. It's not an injury. It's a baby. Our medical expert thinks that what Levi probably first saw was the amniotic sac bulging out right before it ruptured. Emily doesn't even have a second to process this. The baby comes out, falls straight to the concrete floor, and hits her head. And in that fall, the umbilical cord just severs. This is bad, like really, really bad. Our medical source points out that a severed cord like that can lead to catastrophic, rapid blood loss for a newborn. The situation just went from shocking to life-threatening. So let's just run through the list of immediate dangers this newborn, who they later named Caitlin, was facing. 1, she was at risk of bleeding out from the severed cord. 2, a serious risk of head trauma from falling onto concrete. 3, she was blue, which is a sign she wasn't breathing right. And 4, she was totally exposed and couldn't regulate her own body temperature. Every single second mattered. So you've got Levi frantically trying to get help. The couple is terrified, miles from a hospital, with a newborn who is literally on the brink of death. And then, a miracle. A nurse who just happened to be camping at the very same site heard the screams for help and came running. Talk about being in the right place at the right time. This nurse just snapped into action. Her training took over immediately. First things first, she checked the baby's airway to make sure nothing was blocking it. Okay, clear. Next step, she started stimulating the muscles around the baby's lungs, trying to kickstart that breathing reflex. 2 simple, immediate actions that were exactly what was needed to fight the biggest threat. The baby wasn't breathing. And what's really sobering is that even this nurse, a trained medical professional, was terrified. She said later that her biggest fear was that the baby was going to die, right there. But her intervention worked. The stimulation did the trick, and little Caitlin let out her very first cry. Can you imagine hearing that sound? It must have been the most beautiful sound in the world, a sign of life against all odds. This entire crisis really just hammers home why prenatal care is so incredibly important. As the expert in our source material explains, a huge part of that care is screening for problems, catching issues that could make a delivery dangerous for the baby. It's about getting ahead of things. Without any of that monitoring, Caitlin had a traumatic birth that could have so easily been fatal. So once the paramedics arrived, Caitlin was rushed to a special care nursery to get her temperature stable and just get a full checkup. And here it is, the second miracle of this story. Despite the fall, despite the traumatic birth, all the exams came back clear. She had sustained no permanent damage. She was a perfectly healthy baby girl. Okay, so let's clear something up really quickly about getting pregnant. A lot of people think that if you're not using birth control, pregnancy is almost a guarantee, right? Well, not exactly. Our medical expert clarifies that for a young, healthy couple, the actual chance of conceiving in any given month is about 20%. Now, that's still a pretty significant chance for sure, but it's far from the 100% certainty many people think it is. So what's the big lesson here? What's the most important takeaway from this whole insane story? It's actually super, super simple. If you are sexually active and your period is irregular or you miss one, just take a pregnancy test. It's cheap, it's easy, and it gives you a clear answer. Like our expert said, you'd rather know before you decide to go camping and end up coming home with the baby. You know, in the end, this unbelievable story is just a powerful cautionary tale. It all started with a single missed period that was just brushed aside. It really makes you think, doesn't it? In our own busy lives, what's the biggest barrier that keeps us from truly listening to what our bodies might be trying to tell us?